Okay, we're going to move along to step 6, and I'm actually combining step 6 and step 8 together, and I might try and get in step 7 and 9 and 10. But we'll see how that goes. For now, we're going to do 6 and 8. What you'll notice that I've done, I already illustrated the perspective in an earlier video. So now we are moving along to the elevation and the site plan. And what I've chosen to do is I'm going to do them both at once because it might be quicker that way. First thing I want to do is figure out where the trees are going to go and the border on my elevation. So I'm going to do that on trace. Now I'm looking at this end of the building. It looks like I got a big tree here, a big clump here. I got the ones in the front, and then I got another one here by the driveway. So I got some big trees to the rear. Let's just put a couple and I want to make sure I'm staying within my 8.5 by 11 size so I can scan it. Got one there. Actually, I'm going to make that one go a little lower. I got a clump in front of the house. I'm going to get my background stripe in there. I'll have my border go here. And here. And how about if we bring it in? No, I'm going to bring it out. There. I'm going to stop my stripe about here. And I'm going to stop my stripe about here, which will hopefully keep me within the confines of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And it should. All right, that was it for layout. Now I'm going to just do them both at once, and I will ultimately cut them into smaller pieces for scanning. Oh, did I make my piece big enough? Yes, I did, just barely. That should work. as was the case, is I'm going to start from left to right. Oh, it seems to have a little life in it. And I'm going to start doing, I'm going to do my circles, my hard circles first. By hard, I mean my built ones. Again, I love the broken line for this because it allows me to correct for when I goof up like that and that, but that should be okay. I don't see any other hard circles. Oh, I do see one over here. There's that. Now I'm going to start working on my angled lines and my hard lines. In the case of the elevation, that's going to be the roof lines. And I'm using my thin Sharpie for this. As usual, I put my Sharpie down to mark the start of the line, slide my triangle up to it. For example, here, I put the Sharpie down, bump the triangle up to it, line it up with the rest of the line. The lighting isn't that great here. I apologize for that. All right, that does it for the angled lines on the elevation. Now I'm going to just go ahead and do my hard lines on my site plan. Okay, for the driveway, there are some curves in here. So what I do when I have curves meeting up to hard lines is I do the curves first, and then I connect the hard lines to them. And I don't actually connect them. I'll adjust this one a little. There are those hard edge curves. I'm going to get back to doing my angled lines. And as always, I will probably miss a few along the way. Now, obviously, you can do these individually. You don't have to do the site plan and the floor plan, the site plan and the elevation at the same time. I leave that entirely up to you. See, now I'm just playing connect the dots, but I'm not actually connecting them. I'm just bringing it up close. Make sure you have your overlaps in there. Got a little smear there. I don't know if you saw that. It's right there. Now what's going to happen is either we're just going to leave that, which wouldn't break my heart, or we might, if we feel so inclined, clean it up in GIMP. Now what I'm going to do here, I know that later I've got some grid lines coming in, so I'm just going to go ahead and put them in now. Now, I'm eyeballing these grid lines because I've kind of been doing this for a while. If you want to actually measure out where they should be to make them equal, I'll leave that up to you. Get those straight lines in there. That's a little woogly, but we're not going to care that much. Okay. Oh, got a couple hard lines here. And again, you'll notice I don't connect them. I leave a little break between them. I'm going to go back to my elevation now. And I'm looking to see, those trees are behind the house. Those are largely behind the house. I haven't got any that are really, with the exception of that one, which, and in all honesty, I want another one there for that planter. So I'm going to go ahead and now I hadn't laid this one out officially, so I'm just kind of, I did put a couple dots in there to give me an idea where it was going to be. There's the front clump of trees, and since I'm on it, and again, if you've noticed, I'm not totally following my, there's another smear. It's a big night for smears. I'm not totally following the layout lines that I did originally. That's okay. I'm just getting close. And trying not to lay my hand in them. Okay, now I'm going to just go ahead and start putting leaves all around these floating out in space, because it really adds a nice character to your drawings if you just put a few of these loose leaves in, kick them around. In addition, I always like to put a couple little holes or leaves in the trees. And again, that's just to break them up a little bit. Some of these little guys don't need much. All right, we're gonna call that good. Okay, I'm gonna move on to my horizontal lines, because I find them harder than my vertical lines. And the reason that's the case is because I have to move the parallel bar every time I do a horizontal line. Whereas with the vertical lines, I'm just sliding my triangle. The site plan, of course, doesn't really have a whole lot of horizontal or vertical lines. I'll go back in and do the grids afterwards. I'm putting a double line on the inside of the windows and then a line for the trim. Trying to remember that if I've got, I also put a double line halfway in the window. But what I was going to say is I'm trying to remember that in cases like this where I've got two windows, I try and draw them both if they're lined up. It saves me having to move that parallel bar again. Oh, I missed a line up top. We'll keep working our way down. Now, I like to work from left to right, just to avoid smearing, because I'm right-handed. And in this case, I find drawing the elevations to be easier than doing the site plan. So if I was thinking ahead, I would have put the site plan on the left and the elevation on the right. So I'd start with the hard stuff. It's not like the site plan's that hard. This is all just tracing, folks, so. Oh, we got a little brick there. And we got my steps. Okay, we got the baseline. Now I will be fattening this up later. I'm just putting it in there as a placeholder. It looks like we got most of the, oh, see, as I keep looking at it, you see I'll find stuff that I missed. Didn't put the double line there. And since we've gone to all this trouble, now I'm going to go ahead and put in the horizontal lines of our window grids, because I'm here anyways. Oh, I got that brick line, and there'll probably be a header row of bricks. Header just means they're going straight up and down as opposed to side. All right, now for the house, we've done most of our hard lines, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get cranking on the trees. Let's get those all put in. And we have a bunch of trees. The saving grace is, of course, because we're doing it 8.5 by 11, it should go quicker than if you had to trace these out at 11 by 17. But you'll notice I'm doing the clumps of trees. I'm not drawing those lines. So I want these as clumps. Of course, in the classroom setting, I would be asking you folks what to do next. But in this scenario, I'm just doing it on my own. No shortage of trees here, which is great. I think if we're drawing a lot more life, and if it were the real world, it makes for a much happier sight. Kind of puts you in a bit of a meditative state drawing these things. Okay, oops, got one right there. All right, we've got all the trees. I did see some hard lines that I forgot to put in. And that would be our scale. As well as our north arrow. But I'm going to work on that after. I'm going to start over here. Now I'm going to go back to the elevation, take a break from the site plan, and start doing my vertical lines. And I already missed some, so we'll try not to smear anything. I'm going to go back and do the background stripe. I won't do that at this point. Now, what I'm going to do with this brick is I'm going to kick it out just a little bit. Might not even notice it, but you'll see there's a little jog right there. And that's because in the real world, the brick would stick out a little bit. As was the case with the, I'm going to go back and do the grids in the windows. Might not be super efficient, but it prevents me from getting confused. Throw in a dot there for fun. Oh, I missed some lines over there. And I see I missed a horizontal line. Right there. So I'll put that in now, so I don't forget it again. Didn't want to forget the chimney. And I forgot a line at the window, but I'll get that right now. Okay, now I'm going to move back onto the site plan. And I'm going to start putting tree branches in. But I'm going to start by putting dots in all the trees to show where the centers are. which goes a lot quicker than actually drawing the trees, which is good. Oh my goodness, I forgot to do these trees. And I forgot a line on the driveway. But that's okay. We can take care of that right now. Okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the branches in the trees. Then I'm going to do the mulch beds in the lake. Now, you can do this any way that you're comfortable doing it. I like to do the big trees that are on top first. So, like for example, with these two trees, I just picked that one was going to be the top tree. Because inevitably you wind up with some trees over and some under. So I try and do the big ones first. And remember, when you're doing these lines, you want to overhang. So make sure they go past the circle that you drew, well, the outline of the tree. And if you can, really try and get that hit in there. So you're basically, when you do the blobs at the beginning and the end, A, it gives it a little definition. And B, the blob will kind of indicate a trunk, because you get all those blobs coming together, and you can kind of see that in there. Okay, again, I'm going to try and do some of the big ones. That was a bit of a mess, but in the end, no one's going to notice. Now I'm just kind of filling out the clumps, trying not to miss any, working from one side of the page over. But I'm still trying to be conscious of where the bigger trees are when I'm doing a clump and doing the big ones first. And we're making some progress here. And remembering to try and keep these sort of random. Forgot these little fellows. I'm not going to put a whole lot in these because they're so tiny that sometimes just leaving them open is the best call. These are tricky because they're going right off my board, so I gotta watch it with my hand. Now, with any luck, I'm almost down to the last one, which will make me feel good. I don't think I missed any trees. Okay, I'm going to take a quick drink. I'm going to put in some of the vertical lines that vertical lines on the scale. Vertical lines at the end of the road. Now, I am going to want a north arrow on there, and for that, I'm going to use my circle template, assuming I can find it. Oh, not looking promising for the circle template. Got it. Okay. So it's probably the first time in this whole class you've seen me use one of these things, and I made you buy one. That's a pretty tiny north arrow because remember, this was originally meant to be done 11 by 17. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm not putting any of the lettering in. I'm just going real easy here. Make it a point to keep your pen straight up and down, because if you hold it at an angle, your circle will turn into an egg. My north arrows are pretty simple. I happen to like them graphically simple. All it is an arrow. And I will typically, when I color these, I will color them in red. And that's it. All right, there's my north arrow. Okay, catching my breath. I'm going to take another drink, and then I'm going to start. Oh, I see some hard lines that I missed, but then I'm going to do the lake, or rather the pond and the mulch beds. And once that's done, I'm probably going to move on to shadowing both of these drawings. Okay. And I've got to double line the hard to soft. Just doing a line with a W stroke here. Okay, there's the mulch beds. We'll get in the pond. Now for the pond, I'm not doing it quite as I do throw in some W strokes, but I'm not using that hard, jagged line, W stroke line like you're going to see me use. I kind of did it around the mulch beds, and I'm going to do it around the roadways. And around all our hard surfaces. See, with this, I'm just going kind of a straight line, a W, a straight line, a W. Whereas when I did the lake, I did kind of a curvy line. Okay, I'm not going to do curvy lines around the outside edge of the road. I'm just going to be coloring from here up mainly anyways. Got my curvy, oh, sorry. I won't do it around the rest of the house because shadow and profile will take care of that for me. And now I'm going to put the vertical lines in for my windows. And I apologize. So you can barely see them, and you probably can't see them at all in the video. So what I'm doing is I'm just going through without my triangle in the way and just putting dots there where I know the lines are. And that way I can just come back and just trace over the dots. Oh, I forgot a line. I actually forgot lines there too, although shadows will probably fill those in. Okay, those hard lines are done. Now, speaking of shadows, I'm going to do my elevation first. I'm going to do shadows. Actually, first I'm going to do my profile. And let's see. I was hoping to find a nice pointy fat Sharpie. And, well, I think I know where all my thin Sharpies went, and they've worked their way into the desk drawer at my house. So I have plenty of thin Sharpies and one fat one. Let's see how bad it is. We can make it work. All right, I'm going to start by doing a profile around the building. Working somewhat hard to try and not smear it. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I can start putting shadows on the millions of trees that I have here. I love putting shadows on trees because it just lifts them right off the page. I'm just trying to see if there's any on the back side that I've forgotten. And again, my shadows are going down and to the right, which is exciting for that one because it almost goes off the page. And I just saw, oh, this one's even closer. And I did see a couple places where I forgot branches. I'm going to go back and do some profile line work here. And then I'll do the shadows next. I'll let that dry. And while I'm letting that dry, what I'm going to do is profile this building. I'm just going to go in that one direction for now. I'll come back and do the rest. Hopefully this is dried up enough that I can finish these profile lines. Okay, and remember the profile of the elevation just goes around the perimeter of the elevation. Right around the top of that chimney. We don't put the profile through the trees or at least we try not to. We just bring it up and around and down to the ground. It's a little poem there. Okay, I'm going to go back to, I want to get these on here. Okay, we've profiled the building and I did it wrong by shooting through there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. Because I made that mistake there, I'm going to double it up there and hopefully nobody will notice. Realistically, I should not have put those profile lines in there. Okay, let's start doing some shadows. I'm going to do the shadows in the windows of the elevation. And, you know, I like to do those with my thin Sharpies because it just doesn't take much. That's all I want to see. And to get that kind of control with the fat Sharpie, you won't get it and it'll look like a big blob. Okay, I'm going to do my angles first. We're going to have shadows coming underneath these eaves. These are little roof overhangs. While I'm letting those dry, time for some more tree shadows. Now, regarding my mistaken profile line, here and here, if I want to, when I scan it in with GIMP, I can attempt to fix that. I'm really not that unhappy with it as it sits, so I probably will leave it alone, but we'll see how ambitious I'm feeling when it gets scanned in. Okay, I've got all those shadows down. Now, I tend to do this overhang heavier, the sun's coming from here, and this one a little lighter. So I might even just use my thin Sharpie and do these. This is just a shadow, but I want it a little thinner than the other one. And the problem with using the fat Sharpie is it's tough to pull thin off. I'm going to have the same thing on these bricks. I want a shadow on the lower one. So I'll just do a couple passes with the thin Sharpie to give me a thinner shadow. Or else it just looks really strong with the fat Sharpie. But the rest of these we can probably do with the fat Sharpie, because I want a pretty decent shadow there. Okay, I'm going to do my horizontals first, because we all know I hate doing horizontals. Top of the windows. We want to get under these eaves. A little underneath that little projection at the corner. That's called the pork chop, by the way. Okay, we did the down shadows on the windows. While they dry, I'm going to do shadows around the building on the plan. It's going to be coming this way. Now, it's important on these that you make them nice and crisp. What do I mean by crisp? I don't want them, on the trees, they're all loosey-goosey. On these, on the building, I want it nice and tight. And I'm going to draw it right through the trees here. And you see what I'm doing? For now, I'm just doing a double line. So I did that double line. My reason for doing that is that's going to be the border of my shadows. And it looks nice and tight. I'm always trying to tell you guys to loosen up, but I want the shadows to look pretty controlled. Now, clearly, I don't want the white line in there. I'm going to use a napkin as a blotter so I don't. Now I'm just going to go back and fill that in. And a little dot there. Okay, that starts to lift that house up off the page. I am going to put a shadow in the chimney, but I'm going to wait for that ink to dry first. In the meantime, I'm going to go back here and start doing some of my vertical shadows. Sometimes on the windows, I like to do what I just did there, which is I come down and then I just kind of make a few dots. All right, so we got the window shadows in. Oh, I'm missing shadows on these little fellas. This one gets a vertical shadow, that one doesn't. And I can see where I missed a straight line on that one too, by the way. I see where I missed a couple straight lines. I missed one there. And I missed one here. I'm going to put a heavy stripe on a heavy line, not a stripe. Let's call it a baseline. I call this, the curly thing I call the background stripe. This I call the baseline. That's to anchor my elevation. And it should go out a little further than the background stripe. And I'm going to do that with a double pass of the fat Sharpie. Okay, and that's sitting nice and solid. All right, for our elevation, I wanted to put a shadow on the chimney. That one I'm going to use my thin Sharpie for because it's going to get weird. And you'll see what I mean. Really what's going to happen with this oh, there we go. See, you guys aren't the only ones to do it. If you'll notice, I just put a great big old blob. That chimney's just bound and determined to smear. I will be cleaning that up in GIMP. But I did just put a shadow on the chimney, albeit a poor one. Okay, I'm going to go back to my elevations. I'm going to put some trunks on these trees. That little guy, well, he lined up just a little too perfect with that, but we'll be okay. have another one here. Okay, there's some trunks, that guy. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my background stripe. If you haven't noticed, I love the background stripe. And the reason I love it is it really just kind of, and in this case, you don't even have a top to it. It's all just going to the underside of the trees. But to me, that really helps anchor the elevation into your drawing. And it kind of sets off, when we do it here, all of a sudden, the steps are going to be more prominent. And you might even get to see some of those trunks a little better, but not really. That's okay. Oop, forgot one there. And as you see, if I put them together tight enough, what starts to happen, because the pen makes a hit go hit, notice how it kind of makes a nice little highlight around those trees. And that's kind of fun for lifting them off the page. All right, what we've got left on the site plan is some texture and a property line. I'm going to save the property line for last. But I am going to want to put just a bunch of bigger stones with some smaller stones on this stone patio. And I'm going to want to make sure I get a bunch right by the edge of the lake and the corners, because as you know, I love going for the corners and edges. That should be enough for that. For the driveway, we're doing something similar, but it's just real tiny. It's subtle, but it does make a difference. Again, I go for my corners. And then just fill in with a few here and there. What did I want to do next for texture? I got the grid in. You know, there's not a whole lot more texture other than doing the grass lines, which, hey, let's do them. The grass lines are like doing the background stripe on the elevation. They're just one of the fun, stupid things I like to do. It's just a great graphic filler that doesn't take a lot of time and makes your drawing look that much more complete. Okay, now we're going to go around and let them trickle right off. Anything we can do to kind of suck our eye into the drawing. I'm going to put one right there too, just a partial one. Again, make it look like it just bleeds off. A couple dots there and maybe a dot or two there. Now I know that I'm going to put a few dots on these guys just to kind of hint that there's more out there. And there we go. All right, so I'm pretty much done with the black and white part of the site plan. The only thing I have left to do is do it in GIMP and try and clean up that mess at the chimney, which I will do. And that will probably be good for this part of the exercise. Now we're going to start putting some texture in our elevation. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put in some clapboards and some brick. And in this view, I didn't, this view you don't have any, there is a little roof to shade, which we will do. Again, going for the corners. Just hinting at that clapboard texture. And trying to feather it. You've only heard me say that, I don't know, 30 or 40,000 times by now. Another successful thing with feathering, long line, short line, long line, short line. Now you do these, just put the random dots in there at the end. It makes a difference. like putting them in the peak. Short line, long line, short line, long line, short line. Just to hint at it, I would definitely put a couple dots after that one, and then maybe put another one there. Do a few down here. That's pretty good. You can always add more. It's hard to take them out if they're already in. I'm going to put a couple down here, and a couple in that, and then I'm going to move on to the roof. Whoopsie. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to do the roof, which is very little. Find the midway point, which is about there. Cut the half in half. Half of the halved half. Then do half of the halved half's half. And then you go back and go halfway on the halves. Meaning, don't go all the way across. And that's pretty good for the roof. And we're going to do the chimney. And that's going to be about, chimney and the other brick. So for the chimney, we don't want to put a lot of brick in because it's just going to look black. And the only difference between the brick and the clapboard for now is the brick is closer together. I'm going to put a little in there. Okay. Now, the brick is also going to have some vertical elements to it. So what you're going to do, or what I'm going to do, these bricks on top of this are going to be stacked, meaning they're up and down anyways. And then I'll just hint at a couple over here. Okay. These bricks, what I do is I do go ahead and try and put in some vertical lines in a brick pattern, but I feather that out too. I don't know how well you're going to see it, but I'll do the top row of bricks and then I'll skip a line and do that same row. But these are just not much more than dots. And I definitely, well, that's about all I put in there. And there you go. And the elevation is done, with the exception of the scale, which in this one, I think the scale's drawn a little too big. So I'm gonna back it down a little bit, meaning I'm gonna make it a little less tall. Okay, I'm going to call both of these drawings ready for GIMP. And so what I will wind up doing is cutting them out and scanning them one at a time into GIMP. But before I do that, I want to figure out just how I want to scan them and where I want to cut it. Because my scanner at home, which is the one I'm using, is only 8.5 by 11. So let's get ourselves a nice piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. Let's slide it under this elevation, hope it fits. And by golly, it does. Kind of get that straight. And I'm going to go ahead and just trace that real quick. Now understand that if a couple of these lines show up in GIMP, I don't care, because I'll just erase them. But this way I know my scissors are in the other room, but I will actually go ahead and cut these out along the lines. That way they will fit my 8.5 by 11 scanner. Do the same thing with the site plan. You know, you're going to want to try and get it straight, at least as straight as you can. Kick that over a little bit. I'm just eyeballing it at this point. Again, if it's a little crooked, I don't really care, because I'll just rotate it in GIMP and make it nice and straight. And odds are it'll come out of the scanner crooked anyways. They always do. And if you're taking a picture of it, they definitely will. You know what? That one went off the page a little bit, so that's cool. I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm not going to draw that line, but I am going to get this one. Done. And I pray this thing is running. And from here on, I will take it upstairs, cut them out, and scan them.